Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for a special episode of the Memories of Plymouth. We're at the home of Roger Daniels, and we hope to take you through some amazing rooms here. You will hear music like you've never heard before. Roger has been kind enough to share some of the information that he has collected over the years via the equipment, the music itself. But this is truly, truly a special episode. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We're sitting down with Roger Daniels.
Yeah.
How are you?
Oh, fine.
Good, 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 good. We've done an interview before, and the thing that came out of it was your passion for music. Mm-hmm. And today we'd like to spend our time together talking about when did this happen, who introduced you to the world of music, quality music, some of the equipment perhaps that you have that have supported you. How many generations, how many decades have you been listening to music with your equipment?
I've been listening to this type of music since 1957.
57. Was there a person who introduced you?
Not really. We always, as a kid, we always had an old Victrola around that my grandmother had. In fact, it's still up in the attic. And we played the old 78s that she had and everything. And then when I was just about 16, 17 years old, an auction house down the road here, I used to go down there on Saturday nights, and sometimes you could buy a Victrola for $50, and another $50 you brought home 200 or 300 old 78 RPM records.
Excuse me, say that one more time.
Yeah.
200 or 300?
Yeah. 50 cents you could buy. They were throwing that stuff away. Nobody wanted it. And then there was an older couple there that came from Mass that had a summer place up here in South Wentworth. And it was an old schoolhouse that they'd bought and made into a summer place. And when they bought that from the town of Wentworth, in the supply room of that schoolhouse, there was an Edison phonograph in the horn there, and it didn't work at the time, and they gave it to me. Well, then another old fella just up the road from them I knew, he gave me a couple of cylinders to play on it, and I got starting to listen to that, and I said, they had something back then that supersedes what you have now as far as the quality of the sound. Then, of course, through the years, I started picking up later model machines, and this one I acquired about 20 years ago, and this one, of course, being his best instrument that he made.
Thomas Edison?
Yep. Mm-hmm. The quality of the sound on that, as far as I'm concerned, will put anything else to shame that you listen to today.
Well, you're talking about a cylinder. Can I share a cylinder with the audience?
Yeah.
All right. And maybe describe it. It's got his picture on the back of it,
Thomas Edison.
A little bit about him, perhaps.
Yeah.
And Edison Blue Amberol, am I saying that correctly?
That's right.
Record. This is the record.
Yeah.
So can I pop it out?
Yeah, put your fingers inside.
All right, and I bring it out like this, and it's a cylinder.
Yeah.
And this is where the music comes from.
Right.
And when did they start producing these?
Those came out in 1912.
1912.
Yeah.
And they probably, can I use them today if I have a phonograph?
Oh, sure.
All right.
But you're going to have to find an Edison. They ain't going to play on nothing else.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And what would be really the difference between an Edison phonograph and another company?
Well, Columbia made phonographs, but they were still not the quality sound that Edison was. He was still the king of recording sound. And everybody asked him at the factory in the interviews how he determined his speed of 160 RPMs. They want to know if he used mathematicians or scientists or anybody to figure out how sound waves travel in order to get the right speed on the record so those sound waves would cut that groove, which is vertical up and down, and sound correctly. He said no. He said it's all done by trial and error. He would being deaf. He was a deaf man now when he was doing this. and he would bite onto the horn. The vibrations of that horn through his jawbone to his inner ear would make it peak right out at a certain speed. The sound would peak right out perfect, and it come out to 160 RPMs.
Wow, this is amazing.
And the people today, I know one of them from Oregon, his name was Simpson, last name. He helped them develop the compact disc. And he said, when we got all done with it, we've taken it as far as it'll go. He said, we're still no rival for that record and that opera phonograph. We can't compete with that.
There's so many different types of music.
Yeah.
Do you have a certain passion for one of them over the other? Do you like everything that you hear?
I like a lot of it is in the early bluegrass and country stuff I like. A lot of the popular songs of the days back then were real nice to listen to. Plus, the Roaring Twenties now brought us the foxtrot music. That is nice to listen to. There's waltz pieces and everything in there. It's just like turning the clock back, watching Elliot Ness and all of them on TV. Remember that program? Mm-hmm. Where you'd go in these bar rooms or back rooms and you'd hear that music playing in the background. That's what these sound like. And I mean, to me, it's soothing music to listen to. And there's one particular one right here. It's a violin piece, and it's called Smiling Through. I'm not one to listen to violin solos that much, but it's accompanied with a piano subdued quietly in the background. And you can hear the resonant notes of that piano just as clear as a bell. But the violin, you'll hear all 4 octaves of that violin, and it'll sound like the violinist is right here. That's how real they are compared to stuff today that's recorded on CD. You take, especially a banjo playing. A banjo is a very sharp instrument, sharp sounding instrument. Now, if you listen to it on a CD, you don't hear that sharp sound of that banjo. It's subdued. Even on the vinyl records, they sound good, but it's not an acoustical vibration that you're getting off that record to give you the effect of it being live. That kind of stuff really catches your attention, and to me, it's worth listening to it just to hear how they put it all together. And if you could see this being done, one of these books somewhere shows it. They use a Triumph machine. They mounted a manifold on the front of it, and there's all these little ball valves that come off of that with little tubings that went to each instrument. And they had like a violin, or they have like a funnel attached right underneath the bottom of that violin. And that tube came to that ball valve. And also there's on the end of the manifold, there's a man sitting there with a headset on, which is an acoustical headset. And as these instruments are playing, he can open or close these valves as he wants the intensity of each instrument coming in. Of course, today they do it all with electronic synthesizers, blend it all in.
So here you have a passion for music, but it sounds like if we had a recorder, a phonograph here, something was wrong with it, you could tweak it a little bit and make it work.
Yeah. In there, in a little box in there, about that square, there is a recorder that goes in one of those machines in there that you can record 2-minute wax records with. And I've done it on a blank record. You record your voice right on that record and then play it back. It sounds exactly like you there talking.
Wow, back and forth, back and
yeah,
forth. Wow.
Because that type of recording being vertical doesn't lose any of the vibration. It gets the whole range of everything. And when you play it back, especially your own voice, somebody said, that sounds just like you're talking live. And I said, yeah, because what I spoke into that horn, you take that recorder out and put the reproducer back in, put that horn on it, you're playing back exactly what went in.
Take me back a little bit. When the audience listens, if they have a record, what size record would they have that they've kept for decades?
More than likely, well, there again, if they're our generation, they probably still have 78s.
And how large is the 78?
It's a 10-inch record.
10
And then they
inch.
also made a 12-inch record, too.
12.
Because that was their only way of trying to compete with Edison's 10-inch record. You see, they had to have a bigger record because the groove is laterally cut sideways. And by doing so, they have to have space between each groove. Where Edison's technology is a vertical cut record, and the grooves are all right up tight together.
Preservation of records, as we're just talking about now, what do I have to do to save the records so it will last from year to year?
Well, you have to keep them clean. These, I just take some Windex and just spray on them and take a paper towel and wipe all over them, clean them right off.
That's it.
You could do the same thing with his vertical record too. And especially if you're playing old 78s, now that Victor machine in there is their best instrument. In fact, they made that way long after they come out with the closed cabinet Victrola. They made that machine way into 1922. And it has a loud volume to it. Probably they were using them mostly maybe in schools, or in fact they did use one of them for a school machine. Then they probably had them in hotel lobbies where they wanted a louder volume or anything. And the record jacket has it's written right on there, a warning to use a new needle with each play, because that is a lateral cut groove. It's doing this as it's spinning, and that reproducer and everything is heavy. It has a steel pointed needle, and down in the bottom of that groove, that needle is doing this back and forth, following that groove. And after a couple of plays, that needle starts to wear down like a chisel. Now the record starts to get scratchy.
Can I purchase needles now for my old phonograph?
Yeah.
Where would I go?
Let's see.
Specialty.
Right now, the guy I used to get them from in New York, he died on me, so the guy that took over the business is down in North Carolina. I have his address and everything. All I can do is make him a call, tell him what I want, see you the next day. That's how reliable those machines were and how they lasted. That stuff is still available today.
Quality.
The diamond
instruments.
stylus for this machine right here costs you $100 today. That's a small price to figure, considering what you got here. And they're made by Bell Edison in England, the company that made them originally for Edison. They're still making them. You know, you wouldn't think there'd be a demand, but apparently there is. They're still available.
Is there competition?
No,
No.
no.
One company.
Yeah, and down in, in fact, I saw it on the New Hampshire Chronicle. It's down in, I think it's in Hudson or Nashua, down that way somewhere. There's a company that makes all kinds of pointed objects. And they had this machine set up. Oh, there's a real old-fashioned machine set up there. It was running, and it was spitting out phonograph needles, steel needles. They said they still have a demand for those needles. And as far as I know, that's the only place that's making them.
I want to go backwards. You said you were a teenager when you started to notice, I have a passion for music.
Well, yeah, it was very interesting to listen. In fact, a lot of it was, on the Victor label, we had an old record called the William Tell Overture. Of course, it came in 4 parts, 2 parts to a record, flip side. And we liked the part 4. If you remember the Lone Ranger on TV, you'd hear that. Dun, 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 dun. That's the William Tell Overture part 4. Well, we wore that record all out. There again, we probably didn't change the needle as often as we should have, and it wore the soundtrack right off the record. There was nothing left.
Wow. Wow.
And that we kind of got interested. We interacted with that and seeing the TV show Lone Ranger. Of course, we used to listen to it radio before TV came out. And that got us interested. We played that as kids and several other stuff that was, well, groovy back then, you know. But then when the later records came out, we still bought them as late as 58, 78 RPM records. But you had to be careful not to play some of them on that type of a machine because they weren't made for that type of a needle setup. They were made for electric record players. So we just gave up on them, and then we had the 45s on our electric player that we had, and the 33s. But these always stuck in my memory as being interesting to listen to. There is a whole series of what they call Uncle Josh stories. They are a dry humor all about a fictitious New England town known as Pumpkin Center. You have to have a passion for that type of humor to really enjoy what you're listening to. But they are comical. And so I've got them all but one. That one is eluding me. I can't find it.
It is here someplace, or it's not in the house and you need to go find it?
Yeah.
Buy it.
Yeah. Every time the auction comes to me in the catalog, one time they had it listed in there, and I bid on it, and I bid kind of high on it because I wanted it to finish out. Somebody else wanted it worse than me, so I didn't get it.
Whoa. Next time, next time.
Yeah, well, they don't show up very often.
Can you remember your time you went to school in Rumney?
Yeah, one-room school.
One room. Did the teacher have a phonograph during that time?
No, we had a square grand piano. The music teacher used to come every week. Kids would take piano lessons, or if they had any other instruments, they'd bring them in and they'd have a music day there in the forenoon with the music teacher.
You love this so much, and I'm thinking, did you ever play an instrument other than the piano?
Play a piano was the only thing I could play.
Well,
that was simple. Put the roll in, pump the pedals.
Now I understand what you're saying. I thought we had to do this.
No.
No, we don't.
No.
Okay.
The player piano mechanism is driven by air, and you pump the pedals to give it the air to make the roll go.
Would it be common for you to visit somebody on the street, your friends, and they would also have the same passion? There was equipment in their house like you have here?
Not anymore. The last guy that was here lived over in Rumney Village. He had this stuff. He still has it, but he's over in Walterboro, Maine now. And he used to, when he was over here, he used to restore player pianos and band organs and all that kind of stuff. In fact, he had one huge big one over there that came off of a merry-go-round out in Los Angeles, California.
Wow.
But it played a piano roll type mechanism to make the music, the organ music playing or whatever it was. But he did have these. He collected these, and he still does. In fact, I talked with him here last week on the phone. And he said, I'm having a hard time finding these. He ain't seen any in quite a while.
Wow. You have a number of phonographs in here and in your museum.
Yeah.
Am I saying that correct? A museum in your house?
Phonograph room, music room, or whatever.
Mm-hmm. When did you start collecting these?
The cylinder machine?
Mm-hmm.
I started them in let's see, that was 1957 or 50, somewhere along in there. I had my first one. It's in there on top of the china cupboard over in the corner there. And then I gradually started picking them up. You'd go to the dump, and there'd be 2 or 3 of them sitting in the dump. People throwing them out, see. Well, you look at them, well, this was missing, maybe that was broken or anything, but hey, I brought them all home. I had quite a stockpile of them here. Then I started figuring later in years, I might as well do something with them. So I started seeing what I had I could make complete machines out of. I got them all back together and running and everything, and I used to sell those. There's Another man that used to be over in Keene, he had a business called Nipper's Choice Phonographs. Of course, Nipper was the dog that stood in front of the Victor phonograph.
Yes.
So that was the name of his outfit, Nipper's Choice. But he had these too, and he repaired these, and he used to go to record sales everywhere, shows and stuff. So I would take some of them over to him, and he'd sell them for me through his. And they got going, so they were pretty decent, moving right along, nice, especially after 1980. Once the CD came in.
And when did that come in?
It was about that time frame.
Okay.
Everybody figured, well, that plays nice and clear. You don't hear crackles or pops or anything. And I said, yeah, it's nice and clear. But then everybody started thinking, well, I can remember when these sounded nice and clear. So all of a sudden, this stuff came back on the market like hotcakes. Little standard phonograph. All of a sudden, they were selling at an auction for $1,500 a piece until eBay came about. The minute eBay came about, everybody, well, we got one. Let's see what it'll do on the. Pretty soon you turn eBay on, you get to that section. That's all there was, it flooded with them. So now the market price went down. They went as rare as they thought they were. Mm-hmm. In fact, the standard model, especially the Model B, that was made during the height of the 2-minute wax record, 1903 to about 1907. That Model B was the machine they were making. And in that room in there are 4 of those standard machines in there, Model Bs. They started a serial number of 250 some odd thousand. And the last one is 999,995. 5 numbers under a million. And those 4 machines came within a 40-mile radius of here. So just imagine what they are all over the world. Millions of that machine out there. That's the only thing that bugs me is all the writings I've got on Edison, you never can find any record of how many of each machine they produced. Except this one. This one, there's less than 5,000 of them made. I know that. That one is 4,033, and there's one in the other room in there that's 1,345. So when you figure less than 5,000 of them made, 35% of them have already been lost through being trashed or destroyed in some way or another. So there ain't that many of that model around.
When we talk about Thomas Edison, you have piles and piles of books on Thomas Edison. If you'd like to read them, you know where we can find them, that kind of thing. Talk to me about the man. I mean, he invented so many things. You really have to watch, there's 2 movies out. One is called Young Tom Edison with Mickey Rooney. And the other one is Edison the Man. That's done with Spencer Tracy in it. You have, especially young Tom Edison as a kid, you understand what he was like. He was very energetic and always kind of disruptive in school. In fact, he got so that at the point in school, the teachers said he was addle-brained. They didn't want him in school. He's always disrupting everything. But he was buying chemistry books, books on electricity and everything. He wanted to learn everything. And he only went to a 4th grade education. That's what I heard.
His mother taught him at home afterwards.
That's right.
And he ended up with 1,093 patents to his credit. Nobody has ever come close to that with a 4th grade education. He wasn't stupid.
A genius, I would say.
He was a genius. Mm-hmm. And he worked 18 out of 24 hours every day. And sometimes things get a little dull, He'd take a nap for an hour or two during the work day, but if he had a project going now, like when they were doing the light bulb, the whole crew was in that Menlo Park laboratory day after day after day with the doors locked. You didn't go home. You stayed there. You take a break every now and then, but they stayed there till they got that light bulb so it worked. And he experimented with every known metal to make a filament for a bulb. And he finally ended up, they 10,000 or so experiments they did. Nothing worked. So he's on the desk there in the shop. There was a spool of sewing thread, cotton sewing thread. He looked at that and he's working it in his fingers and everything. He cut a piece of it, shaped it like a horseshoe. Told one of the men, take it downstairs to down there in the room where they made lamp black and all that stuff. Carbonize that filament, then put it in.
And it worked.
In a glass bulb sealed. They brought it back upstairs and they hooked it up, turned it on comes the light. It was burning for an hour or so, still burning. And they all fell asleep. When they woke up in the morning, 12 hours later or so, the lamp was still burning. So he told one of the guys, he said, turn the voltage up a little brighter. Well, of course, when they did, then it burnt out. He said, well, if it'll last 12 hours, it'll last 400. It's just, we've got it so it will work. Now we got to perfect it. And in New Jersey, I forget now what town it is, in the fire department down there, where they slide down the pole up on the ceiling upstairs, there is an Edison carbon filament bulb burning since 1879, and it's still burning.
No.
Yes, still burning.
I'm still saying no.
Yeah. He had something.
Gosh.
But the whole...
Of the hundreds and hundreds of inventions this gentleman has done, and he makes a comment, he said, my favorite invention was...
That's the one he's best known for,
the phonograph.
Is the recording of sound. Everybody says, oh, the light bulb. No. The light bulb was patented, I think, 7 or 8 years before Edison was born by a Frenchman. He had a patent for electric light bulb, but he never could make one work. So Edison comes along, there again, 1879, 2 years after this. He comes out with a patent for a light bulb, and he finally got one that worked. So he got the credit for it, but it was done before his time. But they didn't make one that worked. And he did.
Sounds like the word I'm going to use is tinkerer.
Oh,
He
yeah.
liked to
He was
tinker
a
with things.
He tinkered with everything.
That word?
He tinkered with everything. That's why I say you would have to watch these two movies to really understand Edison. And I don't know if they're on CDs or not. Mine are on VHS tapes. But once you watch the two movies, now you get an idea of what the man was. But he never was home. Yeah, he was always doing something. But, because he always had, the minute he got the recorded sound, because that was on a tinfoil phonograph, it had a big drum, more or less, with grooves cut in it, like threads. They wrapped tinfoil over that. And as you turned the crank on the side, it was like a threaded shaft. It would make that travel across. They recorded onto tinfoil. That was the first recording. And of course, his little ditty was, Mary had a little lamb. Its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. And of course, they recorded it, and there were some of the boys there in the shop standing there. And so then they played it back, wound it back, and then played it back through, and the boys come right out the horn. So immediately, On the street now, the newspapers got note of it. A kid on the street hollering, holding a newspaper, 5 cents or whatever it was for the paper. And he said, Edison invents a machine that talks. So, I mean, phonograph was out because they didn't do much of anything until into the 1890s as far as making home entertainment stuff. Because his original idea for that was a business machine known as an Ediphone. Columbia came out with one too they called dictaphone. In fact, when I went to Plymouth High School, the old high school, my senior year, which was 60, must be at town meeting that year. They raised enough money so the school had a new tape recorder for the principal's office. Because all of a sudden, the next day after town meeting, out in the hall was the old Ediphone with all the blank records and everything. Anybody could have it, lug it home if they wanted it.
Is a gramophone like an Ediphone? Is this something totally different?
Gramophone was a trade name of Berliner, 78 RPM record. Okay. Graphophone was Columbia. Because Columbia, see, Edison patented it as phonograph. So Columbia got into it and started bringing out phonographs, but they couldn't call it a phonograph because the name was already patented. And so they just turned the word around, graphophone. I still say, if you really want to understand the man, you got to see those two movies. It'll tell you everything about him. Mm-hmm. And there's one particular one it's on his vacation trips up through the White Mountains. He had Henry Ford with him, Harvey Firestone, and I forget what the other man's name was, but he had a big white beard. And they had a problem with the car, Model T. They pulled up to this garage. Mechanic come out there looking at it. Well, he said, I think there's something, because it was a silent movie, so the sound was dubbed in afterwards. And he said, I think there's something wrong with the ignition here. And of course, Edison being an electrician and everything. No, he said, I'm Thomas Edison. He said, there's nothing wrong with that. And then Henry Ford comes up there and he said, well, he says, I think there's something wrong here with the whole thing. It's not running right. He said, well, I'm Henry Ford and I made these cars. And then Harvey Firestone, of course, he made the comment on, oh, the tires are all right, because he made tires. But this other guy come along with a big white beard, and the guy looked at him and said, yeah, and I suppose you're Santa Claus.
You made that up.
No, that's right on that movie, that tape. But it showed them camping all throughout the White Mountains and everything. And when they went camping, they had a truck come along with them now that they set up camping. They had a tent probably, I would say probably a 30-foot long tent also, and carpets laid on the ground, dining tables set up, chairs, china, everything. Just like being at home, but they were camping.
I'm watching the movies.
Yeah.
You sold me.
Oh, they were interesting to watch that stuff. But that's why I would like to go down to Florida, down to Vero Beach. That's where Edison and Henry Ford have museums down there. I'd like to go see them because I know that is where he used to go in the winter, and he was experimenting with rubber down there because he had a problem with electric cars, which we know today is something new, but they were out in 1910. Baker Electric made a car, and generally it was probably the little old maids around town that went to the library or something, you know. But the battery had a 20-mile range on it. And back then, hey, that 20 miles was a lot of miles a day or a week. So he had a problem. The batteries would not take the road vibration. The cases would crack. So he was experimenting with rubber to make a hard rubber case for the battery. And when he got done, Henry Ford comes along with his Model T, and he said, I finally got this thing perfected, he said, so it won't crack and everything. But Henry was showing him his car, and he said, where's the battery? He said, don't need a battery. Model T ran on a magneto, so you didn't need a battery.
I don't know what a magneto
Well,
is.
it's what gives you your ignition. It's all mounted on the flywheel. And, of course, as you cranked it over, they would energize that magneto, the coils, and back to the spark plug. And the headlights, when they came out in '16 with electric lights, they ran off the magneto also, so you didn't need a battery. He said, you got the right idea. Internal combustion engine, no battery needed. So he gave up trying to develop any batteries after that. But once he did come out with that hard rubber case, they stayed with him right up through into, about the mid to late '60s, when they went over to, now your batteries are all in a plastic case now in the car. But
Bringing you back to almost 2024, that's where we are. What do we do with the children? Trying to get them excited about music equipment. Do you have any suggestions? It's obvious you have a passion for what?
it's a loss. Once in a great while, I'll come across somebody that is interested and willing to listen to the different types of music, comedy sketches and stuff like that, that they kind of get an idea, we'd like to have some. I've been trying to get a number of young kids to do that, but they're so used to all this modern technology, they can download anything they want right off the satellite and watch it.
Do you think we have any of this in the public schools through the music department? Would you have any idea?
I would doubt it. They even, I don't know what they're teaching in school now in music. They're probably still teaching the patriotic songs, but which they should be. And but as far as the popular music of the day, the stuff that ever since about 1980, the popular music to me doesn't make any sense. Most of it's shouting out loud and hooting and hollering, and it don't make any sense to me.
But you have the patriotic music on the cylinders.
Oh, yes.
Yes, that's what I thought. I remember that. I remember that. Okay.
And in fact, in that top drawer, there's the record of Edison's voice recorded for the public. That one has, at the end of it, plays the Star Spangled Banner.
Is that the one you shared with me?
Yes.
That's the only time he ever spoke on.
Yeah. Yeah, the record has, we'll play it here. There's a man introduces the title. He comes on and he says, Thomas A. Edison, the inventor of the phonograph, never before allowed his voice recorded for the public. But today, however, he has a message of importance that's caused him to break his long-standing rule. Then he says that Mr. Edison will now give you that voice. Then he says, I beg to introduce Mr. Thomas Alva Edison. Then there's a little pause. Then this is Edison speaking. The minute you hear that, you know it's Thomas Edison.
Wow. So
and he gives that little speech.
You're allowing us to play it today and record it?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's
And
great.
because when he gets near the end of his little speech, he says, in the years to come, we will always remember the national airs of our allies, Italy, Belgium, France, Great Britain, as well as our own Star Spangled Banner, which then the band comes on and plays. But this was done in 1919.
1919.
The Star Spangled Banner did not become our national anthem until 1937.
You taught me that.
They didn't designate it as our national anthem till then.
So the cylinders that you have directly in front of us right now, they're all the same length of time?
Basically, yeah, they're anywhere from 3.5 to 4 minutes playing, depending on the length of the piece.
And how, just this box here, how long would it have taken you to collect them?
Oh, I've been collecting them ever since 1957, but That box there are all in the 5000 series.
All right.
And those are the harder ones to find.
Wow. Wow.
And there's 2 more in that rack in there.
2 more boxes.
Yeah.
You're overloading me.
But all the other stuff is in the 4000 series is primarily dedicated to the late teens and early 20s, which is when your foxtrot music was coming in. I just wish that they were still making these through the big band era, because those band pieces would be some phenomenal on these to hear him play, especially Guy Lombardo's music. That was nice, soft. That would sound beautiful on these things. But shoulda, woulda, coulda, but we didn't have it. This is an Edison Model A Standard. It's the early version called the Lunchbox Standard. It has a square lid that goes on here, which is under here. So when it's together, it looks like an old-fashioned lunchbox. These ran with a closed gate on the mandrel. You lift your carriage, and you would open your mandrel. You could take your record off or put it on. This is an indestructible record. But with a closed mandrel, they claimed at that time that gave better stability on the record, being barroned at each end. And of course, your reproducer, you drop it down onto the record. There's a lead screw under here that carries this along with the groove on the record. And they sound tinny because it's real early. It wasn't perfected. And then, of course, the later one is that one right there. Then we go over to something a little more modern. The B model phonograph, which is behind you, and then the C model, which is rare. That was the first one that was given to me. It's a Model C, and the rarity of it is it was only in production for about 3 months, and they were basically used in schools, because if you notice, on the end of the mandrel there's no gate. That's the transition from the closed gate one to the open mandrel, and they were used for educational purposes. And luckily that one came out of the one-room schoolhouse out in South Rutland, and they used it in the school. But that was my first one I had. Then I started picking up this one, that one, and this little iron one right in here. That is the Gem model series, which winds with a key. It's a real old one. Then the one next to it, it says Edison Standard Phonograph. That is the updated version of this one here. And this one up here has been updated on the left here now with a whole new exchange of gears that allows you to play both 2 and 4 minute record. They didn't come out with that standard until the D model phonograph, which is that D model standard here. That comes out with 2 and 4 minute operation on it. But then you come into the Home series, which this one back here, that is the first version of the Home. They called it the Suitcase Home because the banner is on the lid, but you see it has suitcase latches, so they called it the Suitcase Home. That one over there by the window is the second version of the Model A Home. Okay, as I say, this one here is the Suitcase Home, which is the updated version. I mean the first edition of the Home. The updated one is over there, which is called the Red Banner Home. They put the red banner down on the case instead of on the lid, and it has a motor board under the metal frame where this one doesn't have. And the later one, of course, the later Model A is over here. But that one is still one of the highly sought after machines because of that red banner And at its time, it was considered intrusive in the rest of the furniture in the parlor. Because it was too bright and flashy, they didn't like that. So they came out with this new banner over here on this one, which is black and gold, kind of a dull banner. The red one I like better. And then we go from there's all kinds of homes here. There's a B home right there. Then over in the corner over here, in the further corner, is a D home, and then there's an E home. And that's the basic of the homes. Then we go into the Triumph, which is considered the best of the production model machines. It starts with that A Triumph right over there in the oak case. That's the A. And then behind me with the wood horn here is the B Triumph. And then the one with the big black and flowered horn, that's the D Triumph. And the one that's right behind you here is the E Triumph. It has the wood horn. These were considered the best production machines. They were $50 a piece. That opera machine that you saw out there, as well as this one that's behind me over here, is the same machine. Those were $90 a piece, new.
And what would that roughly equate to today, money-wise,
Oh,
if you had to guess?
you'd be playing, probably 3,000 or 4,000 for that machine. And right now, if you can find one of them for less than $8,500, you're doing good. I didn't pay that for either one of these, but this one came knocking on my door with 4 boxes of records. Guy wanted to sell it. So I bought it, of course. I wasn't going to let it go by. But then you basically wound down out of the cylinder models. Now you come to his diamond disc phonograph, which there again only plays his records because it has a lead screw. You can play a 78 if you use the jewel attachment. See, this goes in where this reproducer is here. That locks in, but that allows this to travel ahead of the feed so you can play the 78 on it. But the only drawback to this whole thing is the engineering of this horn and everything in here is not compatible with this type of reproducer. So it doesn't sound as good as it would off of that Victor machine over there. This is the box that has, for the wax record, it has a felt lining. This is where the mold spore will develop. But that is a wax cylinder. And this is a $50 record if you can find it. That's what they get it for them. I didn't pay that for it, but now we're going to put it on the mandrel. You don't push these very hard because they're wax. Now this is going to sound sharp to you.
Take me out to the ball game, sung by Edward Baker, Edison record. Casey was baseball man, had some fever and had it bad. Just two for the home, down through every two, taking blue. On the Saturday, her young beau called to see if she'd like to go to see and know what Miss Kate said. No, I'll tell you what you can do. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and cracker jacks. I don't care if I never get back. Let me root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. But it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Oh, if you ever heard the the story of Groundhog Day? On that end over there, that record, bring it over here. Now, this is an Uncle Josh story. It's Groundhog Day at Pumpkin Center. You have to pay attention because he speaks right along pretty fast. Man.
Well, second to last February, we was all sitting around Henry Hoskins' grocery store, and Cy Pettingill said, Henry, what's the meaning of this here Groundhog Day? And Henry said, while silent, every groundhog comes out today and sees his shadow, he goes back in the ground and stays 6 weeks longer. That's a sign we're going to have 6 weeks more of winter weather. But it'll be about 6 weeks before Jim Lawson gets out into society again.
That's just an example of Uncle Josh stories. And one of the things about these machines that when you're done playing it, you always release the brake and let the motor run down. You never leave a spring wound up. Being wound up will kill the life of the spring. But that machine knew it was $40. But let's put it this way. Can you just imagine coming downstairs Christmas morning and finding something like that in the parlor? Can you imagine what that would have been like? Because you had nothing before that, nothing at all. It was amazing, really, when they come out with something like that. But now, if you'd like to go to the diamond disc period, we'll go over there. You're really going to hear some vibrant sound to this piece. It's a Foxtrot record.
So how do you know you've wound enough? Just your memory, or is a feeling of tightness?
Oh, you feel the tension come up on the spring. It says, there is a bend at the end of the Swanee. It's a Foxtrot. It's done by Kaplan's Melodists. And you'll hear a difference here from cylinder. When it first starts on the flat part of the record here, and in the groove, you'll hear a quarter surface noise. But as soon as it comes to the music, you don't hear no surface noise. See, this works the same as a cylinder. You drop it down. You won't hear that when you get to the music. But the music will be sharp. You see, you can hear all the instruments. So it's like stepping into a speakeasy down in Boston. Now you'll hear the surface noise once you get out of the soundtrack. This head, again, will shut itself off. If we let it go further, it'll shut it off. Simple. This is a recorder. There's a mica diaphragm here, and the stylus is mounted right on that diaphragm, and it's limited so it can't travel sideways. And in a machine like this here, you would put that in there in place of the reproducer, put the horn on, then you would use an Edison brown wax blank record. That's a blank, nothing on it. You put that on there with that recorder, speak right in the horn, cut your voice right back on the record. Then take the recorder out, put the reproducer back in, play it back. A lot of them we use for sending messages to relatives cross country. If they had a recorder and a phonograph and a player, they could play your message when you get to them. And if they wanted to put something on, they could erase it, send it back with a new message for you to listen to. No, what you're seeing is an accumulation in some people's eyes, junk, but not to me. To me, it is something to be thankful that somebody was smart enough to invent this. Gives you home entertainment, and today, of course, you go into anybody's home today, if they got kids, they don't talk to you. They're all sitting in a chair somewhere, playing with a video thing of some sort. They don't know anybody else is around. They have no idea of communication. And it's too bad, because they've missed something. Although, in 2011, this is a brand new soda. 2-minute version called the Phonograph Rag. It's a brass quintet, and it's Wizard record.
And you said they were 2 minutes and 4 minutes?
Yeah, these are 2 minutes. You can see the grooves on this record. 4-minute record, you can't see them. They're just fine, so real fine. Because this has 100 grooves to the inch, where the 4-minute records have 200 grooves to the inch. Very fine. But see, there's these steel needles right in there that you can get.
Whoa, there we go.
Yep.
Wow.
For that machine here, it takes steel needles.
Is it possible to listen to the one that has Edison's voice on it?
Oh, yeah, it's out there.
Please, that would be great.
Oh, yeah, it's out there.
So for some people, this may be the very first time that they've heard Edison on tape.
Could be.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's try it out.
Thomas A. Edison, the inventor of the phonograph, has never before permitted his voice to be recorded for the public.
I'm sure.
Today, however, he has a message for you that is important enough to cause him to break his long-established rule. Mr. Edison will now give you that message. I beg to introduce Mr. Thomas A. Edison.
This is Edison speaking. Our boys made good in France. The word American has a new meaning in Europe. Our soldiers have made it mean courage, generosity, self-restraint, and modesty. We are proud of the North Americans who risked their lives for the liberty of the world. But we must not forget, and we must not permit demagogues to belittle the part played by our gallant allies. Their casualty lists tell the story. However proud we may be of our own achievements, let us remember always that the war could not have been won if the Belgians, the British, the French, and the Italians had not fought like bulldogs in the face of overwhelming odds. The Great War will live vividly in the minds of Americans for the next 100 years. I hope that when we do reverence to the memory of our brave boys who fell in France, we shall not forget that their brothers in arms who wore the uniform of our allies. I believe that the national airs of France, Great Britain, Italy, and Belgium should for all time to come be as familiar to us as our own Star-Spangled Banner.
That was great.
It's the only time it's ever recorded for the public.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for another Memories of Plymouth program. It's been our privilege to visit Roger Daniels again, especially in his home, listening to so many different kinds of music today, from the cylinders. I would like to finish, if we could, you picking out something that is perhaps your most favorite. What would that be?
It is entitled The Light Cavalry Overture.
Oh, that sounds so appropriate for what we're.
There again, these records were tested at the factory, 3,000 plays with no sign of wear or distortion. And I know I've played that one over 1,000 times.
Audience, are you ready?
And this is going to give you the impression that you're there at the Boston Conservatory of Music. You're sitting out there at the proper range.
One more time, the name of the music.
Light Cavalry Overture.
Thank you. To our audience, enjoy.